has already gone through the pain of, diverting its energy resources away from, what was its dominant market, the European Union, to Asia. It's taken that financial hit in 2023. And it's now, almost entirely shifted focus towards China. And, just go back to what you were saying earlier, Europe certainly is in the most vulnerable economic position. Militarily, certainly is a different issue, but economically it is in the most vulnerable position. The US is certainly in a very comfortable position because it's energy self-sufficient. It produces enough oil for its domestic needs, and it's a big exporter of LNG.
Chris, I'm going to stop you there because we're running out of time, and I want to come to Alan just for a very quick answer because we are running out of time. Alan, what's the appetite here for the Americans? Will they stomach a $200 a barrel oil price if that happens? What's the appetite here for the war?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, and certainly we've seen in the recent past that the appetite that the American people have, mainly for more military casualties, is really quite limited. And I would imagine that folks are going to be very, very unhappy if oil prices stay this high. If oil prices stay this high for much longer, much less if they rise further.
I want to thank all of you, Stephen Erlinger, Chris Weaver and Alan Tonelson, and thank you too for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com, and for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is at AJ Inside Story. From me, Imran Khan, and the whole team here, bye for now.
With the global rules-based order creaking at the seams and geopolitical tensions taking center stage, Upfront is back.
I think Trump has been fueled by retribution, intimidation, whiplash, flood the zone. And at the heart of it is the deportation border issue.
He's a wannabe emperor, and emperors need empires. Join me, Mark Lamont Hill, along with my special guests, Upfront on Al Jazeera.
It's 12 GMT, 3 p.m. in Doha. Hello, I'm Fuli Batibo with Al Jazeera's continuing coverage of the conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran. These are the latest developments on day 13. The UN's refugee agency says up to 3.2 million Iranians have been displaced as Israel and the US continue to bomb across the country. Volatility on the markets and fluctuating oil prices as energy sites in the Middle East are top strikes. A wave of coordinated drone and missile attacks by Hezbollah and Iran forces Israelis to take shelter. And Israel announces an expansion of military operations in Lebanon after a night of air raids that killed at least 8 people in Beirut. They have have been more strikes on Iran, with explosions seen in the central city of Isfahan. The United Nations says more than 3 million people have been displaced by the US-Israeli bombings. Strikes have continued, with many parts of the capital, Tehran, reduced to ruins. Iran, 19,000 civilian sites have been hit since the war began. The UN Refugee Agency is warning that humanitarian needs are rising rapidly. Meanwhile, Iran has been targeting fuel storage facilities as the conflict in the Middle East spreads. This sent Brent crude prices above $100 a barrel. Bahrain's Interior Ministry has confirmed an attack on fuel storage tanks at a facility in Muharraq. It says authorities are securing the site. Iraq, for its part, has suspended oil operations at its ports. That's after 2 foreign fuel tankers, including one owned by an American company, were hit in the port of Al-Fao in the south. At least 1 crew member was killed and another 25 rescued. In Oman, multiple drones struck fuel storage tanks at the port of Salalah on Wednesday. The attack caused explosions and a major fire in Salalah, which is an important hub for tankers wanting to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. And 3 cargo ships were attacked in the Strait of Hormuz on Wednesday. One was a Thai-flagged vessel. 20 crew members were rescued after a fire broke out. Well, more than 800,000 people have been internally displaced in Lebanon since the escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. And in response to a barrage of attacks overnight, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz now says the military will expand its operations in Lebanon. He said if the Lebanese government cannot stop Hezbollah from attacking, then Israel will. On Wednesday night, one Israeli attack killed at least 8 people in a popular beachfront district of Beirut. Well, we have a team of correspondents covering the latest developments in Doha, Baghdad, Nablus in the occupied West Bank, and the White House in Washington, D.C. We start first with the Associated Press reporter Inzamam Rashid, who's reporting from near the Strait of Hormuz in Diba in the United Arab Emirates.
There are still around 1,000 vessels that are lined up, waiting to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. They've anchored down because they know that they are not going, haven't shifted for around 8 days or so. 200 of them are crude oil tankers that are just parked up in the Strait of Hormuz behind me. You may be able to see just in the very faint distance, there are a few vessels currently sat there to my left around the corner. There are dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, just lined up, waiting to get the signal that they can cross. But right now, we know that the Strait of Hormuz is in the control of the Iranian military, meaning that any vessel that does attempt to cross will be targeted. We've seen the evidence of that over the last few days. A couple of nights ago, from my balcony here in the distance, around 15 miles that way, probably Iranian waters, we saw a vessel on fire, burning, that was burning for a good few hours. And then since then, we've had reports of a number of vessels targeted by the Iranian military. It seems that over the last 48 hours, 72 hours or so, Iran has specifically been targeting energy resources, whether it is oil facilities across the wider Gulf. Obviously, we've seen the attack on a couple of vessels in Iraq waters as well, or whether it's been here on the Strait of Hormuz, not just blocking the strait, but also targeting vessels as well.
Al Jazeera's Zain Basravi here in Doha Forest. No let up in the Gulf region, as we heard there. There have been multiple strikes on multiple oil targets. Zain, tell us about what's been hit.
That is correct. The strikes have not let up. In fact, this morning, as we were talking about the Strait of Hormuz, there was another attack on a vessel reported off the coast of Jabal Ali, an unknown projectile once again hitting a ship and causing a small fire on board, similar to the attacks that you mentioned that we saw on Wednesday. So the profile of these attacks is remaining consistent. A number of attacks across the states once again. We had an air raid siren here in Doha. The all clear was given shortly thereafter. No explosions were heard this time, but in other parts of the area, we've seen multiple drone attacks. Australia, in fact, telling non-essential diplomats to leave Israel and the UAE because of the ongoing threat in those places. Kuwait reporting a drone attack at the international airport that does cause damage. Dubai informing us of, or reporting a drone strike, an explosion, multiple intercepted by UAE defenses since 3 a.m. last night, and the list goes on and on. Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, oil installations, the Sheba oil field in Saudi Arabia, the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia that the Americans regularly use, drone targeting a residential building in Kuwait. Oman, of course, those oil tankers that you mentioned early on in the bulletin. So it is consistent. What they are targeting is the Strait of Hormuz, a pressure point there, a naval pressure point there. They are targeting the airspace over Gulf Arab cities as a pressure point. They're targeting the oil and gas sector, energy as a pressure point, and that bypass that people are trying to use via Oman to get around the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, they're targeting that as well. So consistently, even though the volume and frequency seem to slow down midweek, it seems like that's ratcheting back up. The spread of these attacks is also ratcheting up.
Yeah, consistent pressure on these Gulf countries, Zain, no doubt. Mahmoud Abdel Wahad in Baghdad. We've seen also images of an oil tanker on fire off the coast of Iraq. Some very spectacular images, extraordinary pictures. What are you finding out about what happened there?
Well, these are two foreign tankers. They were loaded with the crude oil from the Al-Faw oil port in southern Iraq in the past. And as they were still in the Iraq's maritime domain, in the territorial water, they were hit, according to Iraqi officials, by an Iranian explosive-laden boat. Then rescue teams, Iraqi rescue teams, managed to rescue 8 members of the crew members of the 2 ships. One is confirmed dead. Now, these 2 tankers, as you know, that they were hit after threats from Iran to target foreign vessels that do not comply with their conditions, with Iranian conditions. Now, you know that after this operation, oil operations have been halted in Iraq, and since the beginning, you know, it's already an overstretched sector in Iraq. Since the beginning of the conflict, Iraq has decreased its oil production from 3,300,000 barrels a day to only less than 1 million barrels a day. And a country like Iraq relying on oil revenues for more than 90%, then this is a major blow to the country's economy.
So, Zain, as you heard there, pressure on energy infrastructure across the region, but banks now also shutting down operations in some Gulf countries. Why are they